So hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Ask Blue podcast. I am of course still Richard Austin. I'm here today with a special guest from Zebra, Mark Thomson. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Nice to be here in Spain.
Good. Well, great to see you here. We've known each other for quite a few years, and we always start by introducing the guests, or at least getting the guests to introduce themselves. I would like to introduce you, but despite the fact that I've known you for quite a few years, I'm not really sure what you do apart from talk very knowledgeably about retail. So do you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do and
sure,
your
but
role?
Don't tell anyone else what I do, because it is a big secret.
It's one of the industry's closely kept secrets, right? Yeah,
I'll just fly around and hopefully nobody catches me.
Yeah.
My role.
I've been accused of that myself. Actually.
There's a lot of us in the marketplace.
What do you do apart from these podcasts, Richard?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You be careful. Someone might find out. My role as retail strategy director for Zebra Technologies is
impressive.
Essentially understanding what is happening in the retail marketplace. A lot of that comes from either research that's happening and gathering that research together, working out what is true, what's not true, so it's a bit of analysis around that research. But the real stuff comes from talking to retailers. So I'm with retailers every week, understanding their challenges. What are they looking for? What are they spending their money on when it comes to IT, and what outcomes are they looking to achieve? And that's where we see obviously the big trends, the big shifts. We do a lot of our own research as well, so I help to coordinate that. And then I take all of that knowledge, that information, and I plow it back into the Zebra organization.
Right.
Because obviously as a technology business, we have to know what direction we need to take. We have to know what product solutions we need to develop in-house.
And that comes from an in-depth understanding of the customers, the market. Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that makes you an absolutely perfect guest for the podcast that we've got today. So we were both recently at the NRF Big Show, and obviously that's the show where a lot of the new technology gets launched into the retail market. But I think just to set the scene a little bit before we get into talking about what we saw at the show, I think you touched there a little bit on the challenges that are facing retailers. Do you want to outline a little bit, Mark, before we get started? What's the background to this? What are the challenges that retailers are facing today? And
sure,
what does the market look like, and the difficulties for retailers?
Look, I would say retail's probably in its most challenging position over the last few years. It's been in an extremely challenging position, probably more so than it has been for 50 or 60 years. The reality is there are some big, macroeconomic factors at play. We all know, even in our daily lives, inflation is, even though it's coming down now, it's still way higher than it has been for the last 10 years or so. And that affects retailers in many, many ways. First of all, if you or I have got less money to spend, we can't buy as much in terms of our weekly shop or our clothing allowances, if you like.
Yeah, we're all feeling the pinch a little bit, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then it affects retailers, obviously, from the perspective that their input costs, so the cost of the fuel that's moving their trucks around, that's bringing their produce to the stores, has gone up. The cost of lighting and heating their stores has gone up. So every aspect, and then the input costs of even of the products that they sell. So the pasta, the wheat, etc., the flour, all have increased in price dramatically. So inflation is a massive, massive factor. So that's one. The other thing is, of course, and we can't escape the war and political uncertainty that we hear in the news on a daily basis. And whilst you think that might be a long way away from a retail experience or what's happening in the retail marketplace, it does affect both the pricing. It has that impact on inflation, but it also affects supply chains. So which products am I going to get? Do I have to rethink where I buy my products from? And what products are impacted in that respect? If you just think about the impact of what's happening in Gaza, the impact that then has on missiles being fired at ships in the Red Sea, the rerouting of some of that supply chain. It moves that supply chain from Asia to Europe from roughly 19 days to 31 days as it now shifts to move it through via South Africa.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of the costs of doing that, is extra cost of shipping, extra longer to get the goods here. And
you've got it. And if you think about the cost of shipping, so it's the fuel to run those ships, so it's nearly double the cost. The cost of labour on those ships and nearly double. And of course, if you've got perishable goods that 19-day, that everything is set around a sort of 19-day period, you're now talking an extra 12, 13 days on the sea. So you have to look after those items, whether it's chilling them, etc., or maybe you have to source them from a different place altogether. So war and political uncertainty is very difficult for retailers, and also you can't plan for it. And retailers like to be able to plan for the future. Labour is another massive challenge for them. I mean, you and I have talked about this before, but where do I find staff? They all seem to disappear after the pandemic. And it's funny because from a UK perspective, you might refer to Brexit and say, oh, it's all to do with Brexit. But the labour challenge has happened in the US, it's happened across Europe as well. So everybody seems to be suffering from this reduction of availability of labour. So where have all these people gone? Are they just reducing their hours? Are they not wanting to work in retail or in warehousing? So retailers are really struggling to find enough people.
I guess there's an ageing population that has an impact on it, and the changing behaviour among the different generations, young people.
I think that has a massive impact. And then one of the connected impacts with the inflation piece as well, and that availability, is that the cost of labour is going up. You've also got some politics coming in there as well, because the minimum wages being set by the governments have increased. UK, I was looking at the figures recently, over the last 4 years, the minimum wage has increased by 40%.
Wow.
So if you take that compounding effect. So if you think about most retail workers being paid the minimum wage, a 40% increase in 4 years, how do you sustain that? You almost can't.
And I think that's a global thing as well. I mean, while we were in New York, there was a piece of news, I think I saw it in a taxi on the screen on the way in from the airport. California minimum wage is $20. They've just increased it to $15 an hour in I think New Jersey. It's $16 in Philadelphia, and that's not certainly not unique to the UK or Europe.
And that's the strange situation in the US, that each state sets their own minimum wage. So they've got even more challenges if you're a retailer operating across the US.
Right,
You've got different minimum wages in every single state.
And
so how do you set your wages?
I guess in Europe as well, that's
and Europe as well, of course, and then currencies, and so lots and lots of challenges around labour.
Certainly difficult to argue against the minimum wage, and but it's for retailers, it's a big factor, as you say.
It's more to do with being able to plan. It's more to do with being able to manage budgets and schedules. And of course, if the cost of the goods that you're selling is going up, if the cost of heating and lighting your premises is going up, if the cost of employing staff to run those businesses is increasing at the rate it's been increasing over the last 4 years, then you seriously have to rethink: do I need stores? Are physical stores the best way to reach the customer? My argument would be still yes, but maybe they have to be some rethinking around the purpose of those stores, the size and format of those stores.
How do we make sure that
what is the experience?
How do we make sure that they're still cost efficient? They're all, in all of these cost changes that you're talking about, they're all increases. There's nobody saying, well, gas prices are falling rapidly, so
very little is going down. So and then the other question around that drives is, what is the purpose of a physical store? Is it, and we've always measured stores on sales per square foot or sales per square metre, depending upon whether you're imperial or metric. But is that the right measure? And does that really account also for any, I guess, brand or omnichannel influence that a physical store might have? So if I return products to the store, how do I measure that? Because the staff are still having to work, but the customer's appreciating the fact that there's a physical store for them to be able to return a product to. So there's value in that.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I see that myself in my shopping habits. I'm certainly more inclined to buy from somewhere where if I know that I can return the goods to a store rather than having to mess about, going to the post office. Am I going to incur a returns fee for this? That's
and not knowing what, because retailers, especially online retailers, have not traditionally been great at shouting about how much they charge customers for returns or what's their returns policy. It's almost hidden away, and until you've actually bought something, and then you do need to return it, and then it becomes quite painful. And you might find that actually what you bought online didn't even come from the same country that you're in, and now you're having to return it and pay the postage to another country, which is going to cost you a significant amount. So suddenly any savings you thought you might have made on that item have vanished completely.
Yeah, it's an uncertainty, I guess, and and also from the retailer's point of view, if they are going to cover the cost of return, there's a huge cost in terms of people's behaviour.
And that's a dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah, people buying, I want to buy one item, but in order to get that one item, I'm going to buy 5 others in different colours and maybe even different sizes to make sure that I get the one that I want. I know full well that I'm going to return 4 of these, and if I know that the retailer is going to foot the bill for that, then I'll even order more than 5. So,
and that's the big challenge of, I guess, what the retail industry still generally calls omnichannel, but it's really just retail now. It's people will shop how they want to shop. The sort of digital native generations are not really split by channels. They don't think of I'm a store shopper or I'm an online shopper. People shop in all of those ways and leverage the physical estate to either pick up or return, or even to do the browsing and trying on, and then they go off and buy online. So physical still has a purpose in all of this, but it's got to be seamless, and then that puts the challenge on the retailer to make sure that all the processes around a physical retail store make sense and that they're valuing those physical stores in the right way.
So technical and logistical complexities in addition to all of the whatever global political changes that are going on. What are some of the other big challenges that are impacting retailers today?
Look, sustainability is huge on the agenda, and we rightly so. And retailers are now putting that up at the C-suite, up at the executive board level. In fact, many of the retail execs' bonuses are even judged or measured based upon the metrics that they achieve or don't achieve when it comes to their sustainability goals.
I think rightly so as well, but it doesn't make life easier for the retailers by...
it's one more piece of complexity, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one more thing they have to think about. So I receive a lot of the RFPs, the sort of technical proposals and requests from retailers that come into our sales teams, and almost every single one of them now has sustainability factors built into the set of questions. So you have to start talking about what is the power consumption, what is the impact on the environment, what happens to the batteries in terms of recycling the batteries. So how efficient are these when it comes to environmental factors?
Yeah, that's certainly something that you just can't ignore that these days. And if the way to drive it, as you say, is to make sure that the retail executives have got, if they're getting paid on it, then they're going to act on it, aren't they? So,
and in fact, if you look at most retailers' websites now, in terms of their corporate websites, you will find on there actually very clearly, whereas a few years ago it would have been buried away in a subnote. They clearly state what their environmental goals are, at what point they want to become net zero, they'll measure their carbon footprints, etc., and what they're doing for the environment. So it is certainly a lot clearer, and that ties into also what they do in terms of things like food waste in their stores. And we see a lot of, for the grocery retailers in particular, a lot of focus on how do we minimize the impact on waste, what leaves what is wasted both in the supply chain, but also what is wasted from the store itself.
Yeah, and I know Zebra's got some interesting things to say about that, not only in terms of food waste solutions and technical solutions to help that, but also your own sustainability and management of your own product life cycle, which I know is an important thing. So good to see the industry responding to the factors that are impacting the retailers, and maybe get into that a little bit more later on. Yeah. Any other factors that are making? So surely there can't be anything else making life difficult for.
Unfortunately, there is. For me, there's two big things. There's the overall, I guess, behavioural shifts, because like it or not, time does pass. So when I started working for Zebra 24 years ago, so quite a long time in the past. Nobody had heard of, millennials were this future thing, and nobody had heard of Gen Z. It just didn't exist. Whereas now, millennials are in their mid-40s, and Gen Z are into their mid-20s, so in sort of prime spending. So retailers are now having to react to these new generations who naturally behave very, very differently. These people, unlike you and me, Richard, and sorry to age you, but
thanks for that.
We didn't grow up.
Nearly got away with it with
the technology. I say to people all the time, when I started work back in the early 90s, I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have a computer on my desk. I didn't have a mobile phone. So all of these things came in the sort of the next 10
you'll
years.
You'll remember having to learn how to use email, I guess, like me. Yeah.
Email, search engines, all of that was totally new.
Yeah.
I mean, to get a memo written, I used a dictaphone, which went into a typing pool. Somebody then typed it up and then brought it back, and I made some corrections on it with a red pen, and then it went back, got corrected, and then it got sent out. So it would take a day at least for a letter or a memo to get to somebody. And so what we expect now, this current generation expects this almost immediacy of information, immediacy of response, and that includes in their interactions with retailers. I need to return something, tell me how, and they want an immediate information on that. 20 years ago, that just wouldn't happen. It would take several days. So we have seen this massive shift in expectations. I think the sort of Gen Z are less tolerant, maybe, in terms of any mistakes or errors, and they certainly have higher expectations, and everything now is visible. That's the one thing about how technology has exploded. Everything is visible. So if I want to buy a pair of boots, for example, I can do a Google search and I will see 20 different retailers selling either the same or similar boots, and I can then make some choices, and I usually see their prices online as well. So it's very, very quick to be able to make decisions between various different outlets or competition.
So, sorry.
No.
I was going to say, so to address this behavioural change, these enhanced expectations that consumers, particularly younger consumers, but also increasingly older consumers as well, to address this, retailers are having to become increasingly tech savvy. In fact, almost retailers are having to become tech businesses themselves in order to meet with that, which is, I guess, that's further challenges to the retailers too.
And that would be my sort of last big point in terms of the changes and challenges that retailers are facing, is the myriad of technological advances that they're having to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about an IT department 20 years ago, that was about keeping the lights on and making sure there was some sort of connection to make sure the tills were up and running and could actually send data back overnight to a sort of batch style, so that we got some POS reports. That was it. That was IT's job, and the only real bit of technology in the store was the till itself, the checkout. Now, if you think about the amount of technology in the store, the number of cameras that are there of all different types, the cloud-based point of sale, the mobile devices and mobile printers held by staff. So there's a significant amount of technology available to them. And now they've also got the technology around e-commerce, omnichannel, online. They've got AI being thrown at them now, and how are they going to use AI, whether it's generative or other forms of AI.
Not just the existence of all of these different areas of hugely complex technology, but also how do you make all of that work together as well? Because it's great having AI, but if it's not integrated into the systems that they've got, what use is it to them? You know, if that AI is not integrated with the point of sale, so that you're able to convert that shopper behaviour that you've recognised somewhere else in the store into transactions at the store at the point of sale, then is it actually helping you at all? Is it?
Yeah, and I think we talk about digital transformation when it comes to retail, and I think part of that challenge is almost moving away from the traditional siloed departments within a retail store, so loss prevention, IT, retail operations, logistics, warehousing, etc. Because actually the data that they all generate and their understanding of both product movements through the business, the customer journey, loyalty, product information in terms of sales, all of that's interconnected, and we're sort of realizing that, and it has to be interconnected, especially now that half of those sales in many retail businesses are now online. So you can't keep all these channels and silos within the business. They have to work together, and I think retailers are still, to a great extent, struggling to work out what does that new model of retail look like. What is a modern retail experience?
Yeah, and I guess it's our job as the members of the retail technology industry to help them, to guide them through that, and to do that. And a big part of that was the NRF Retail's Big Show, which we were both attending. I was going to say lucky enough to attend. We were sent there to do. Yeah, we've both been there a good few times before, and it's always a fascinating show. Always a really good show to find out more about the latest. I mean, actually, for people maybe who haven't been there or perhaps new to the industry, what is Retail's Big Show? What is NRF? What's it all about?
Yeah, so you and I and many others in our industry just refer to it as NRF, but the reality is NRF is the National Retail Federation, which is the US sort of retail body that represents retailers, and each year they hold multiple events, but the big one, which they call the Big Show, is held in January in New York every year at the Javits Center. Somewhere in the region of 40,000 people attended it this
huge,
year.
Yeah.
So it continues to attract attention. And there's over 1,000 technology companies exhibiting at this show.
Yeah, it seems to just get bigger and bigger every year.
It does get bigger. It's multiple floors, and there's different sort of innovation zones, and there's big players and small players. And there's a challenge in that by itself. And we talked about all the different technologies.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 1,000 booths to walk around and to try and fathom out
in 3 days, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? What should I invest in? Is it relevant to me? That's really, really difficult. And that's, for me, why the show is great. But attending a show like that, you almost need to attend with a purpose in mind.
Yeah.
And understand the outcomes or the challenges you're really trying to address. So going back in a sense to those, if you're a retailer, understand clearly what are the big challenges, what are your big metrics, KPIs, whatever values that you're trying to deal with right now, whether it's sustainability, whether it's transforming your workforce, whether it's getting better visibility of your inventory so that you can manage your omnichannel fulfillment better. I mean, whatever your objective is, go to a show like that with those objectives in mind, and then it focuses your attention much better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think, looking back at the challenges that you mentioned before, if clearly as a retailer you want to go out and address those challenges at Retail's Big Show at NRF, there's certainly there's a plethora of solutions available there to be able to go out and do that. I mean, it's a bit of a task getting round and finding all of them, but if you're determined to find them, there's any number of companies there that are in a position to be able to offer those solutions. So I think
definitely,
what I'd like to do next is look into that in a little bit more detail and sort of address what new solutions were available to see it, and I have to specifically address all of those, the challenges that we spoke about before, these pillars of dismay that you were talking about, the really, really challenging environment that that retailers are looking at?
You're right. NRF, it's a myriad of different technologies, different solutions, different people trying to get your attention. So if you're a retailer attending NRF, it's hard to know which way to turn, which way to look, which floor to even to be on, which of the conference sessions to go and listen to. So yeah, having the right, I guess, big themes and understanding what you're trying to achieve is important. And one of the big things that we saw a lot of, which is strange really, it's inventory management.
Yeah.
And I say it's strange because you would think, well, surely that's always been important, and that's just sort of by the by for retailers. They always manage their inventory pretty well. And I guess for me, it seems to be more important than ever. And I think the omnichannel piece has driven a lot of that, because now retailers are having to think, if I'm picking for my online orders, where am I going to pick from? Am I going to pick from a warehouse? Is my warehouse set up for e-commerce, or is everything in boxes, which makes picking obviously quite difficult? Do I then create a separate warehouse simply for fulfillment, which means I'm doubling the space of my warehouse, which is adding to my cost? Or do I pick from store, because in a store everything's laid out in singles, so I can actually pick for customers' orders a lot easier.
Yeah.
But then you've got the challenge of there's customers moving around there, and secondly, how much about my stock do I know? Do I have gaps on the shelves? Is it front of store or back of store?
Yeah.
And that
also,
level
if it's
of
not
visibility,
in this store, is it in another store?
Is it in another store?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I've got it out there somewhere.
Yeah.
How do I pick, if a customer's ordered 5 items, have I got all of those 5 items in that store, and can I fulfill from there? And will the customer come and pick it up from the store, or will I have to then sort out some other logistics of delivering from that store to the customer? So you can see just from that sort of 2-minute overview that the complexity around inventory relating to omnichannel. So there was a lot around inventory, around increasing visibility, around using technologies like machine vision, RFID. So we certainly as a business saw again a significant growth in RFID last year.
Okay.
Which is strange, because RFID is not a new thing. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't expect to see significant growths, but we certainly had relatively high double-digit numbers in RFID.
I guess it's the combination of RFID with the other advancing technologies that really RFID uniquely addresses. I think that's one of the things that's helping to drive the requirements for RFID forward. Yeah.
I think it's also a snowball effect. I think the more people that use RFID, the more suppliers start to add RFID tags at source.
Yeah.
And if you're buying your clothing supplies from the same sources and it's already tagged, then it starts to make sense. It's much easier for you to then start to think about how you might use RFID in your stores. I think the fact of RFID tags becoming cheaper and technology becoming more pervasive, and then additional usage like the picking from store, so being able to find items a lot quicker, and then just understanding and getting that digital visibility of products in the store. So
traceability,
RFID does
right?
that.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we've talked about for years, that traceability, but it's been done historically using barcodes, and now RFID adds a digital ID to those products.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose one of the other things that was certainly being looked at closely at that I saw was shrinkage, and because that's increasing, right? What's happening there?
Well, it relates back to inventory. I mean, obviously, if I can, retailers want to avoid loss of any form, and shrink, whether it's waste or theft, and it is problematic for retailers because it does affect what's on the shelf. So on-shelf availability for customers, but it also affects what's available for staff to pick for customers, going back to the omnichannel piece. So it was a very, very big topic. And what seemed to happen over the last 12 to 18 months is, with inflation being extremely high around the world, shrink also seemed to rise dramatically. And you can kind of see some connections between those two factors. If people have got less money in their pockets, then perhaps that in motivation to steal goes up. So naturally that those two things are linked.
Yeah, whatever the reasons that are driving shrinkage, retailers, no matter why psychologically someone decides to steal from the store, or
whether it's customers or non-paying customers or staff, it's certainly increased.
Yeah. So what from a technological point of view, what sort of solutions, what did you see at NRF to address that?
Well, so we saw lots of things. So RFID by itself helps because it gives that visibility to shrink at least. So if you have the standard EAS security tags, as they walk out of the store, the alarms go off, but you don't know what's actually been stolen. The beauty of RFID is something leaves the store. If you've got RFID barriers, then actually you know what's gone out of the doors, and therefore you can at least replenish it, so you don't lose what I would call the opportunity sales. Those sales that you wouldn't have got if the product wasn't on the shelf. So you can replenish faster, and that helps to retain at least some of that margin and revenue. Other technologies include machine vision, computer vision, so being able to see what's on the shelves and replenish those. So if there are any gaps, if things go missing from there, we see someone's done a sweep, what we might call a sweep event. So all the products suddenly get swept off the shelves, disappear. Let's get them at least replenished as soon as possible. So that process is helped with machine vision, and we do see whether it's shelf edge cameras, in-ceiling cameras, or even shelf sensors being deployed for those aspects. We see increased interest in what the industry might call frictionless stores. So the cameras in the ceilings and the fusion of different technologies to shop in a different way, because that gives me that ultimate visibility about what's on the shelf, what's going missing, and hopefully nothing going missing, because it's a much more controlled environment.
It's also looking at people's behaviour as well. That same technology can be used to track the behaviours. Like AI can be used to, somebody came in at the store 20 minutes ago, then they left. Now they came in again. That's sort of classic shoplifter behaviour. They come in, they scope out the.
It is, and an AI absolutely can be trained to understand and look for those sorts of behaviours, and then to create some sort of warning systems so that at least staff can react and be positioned in the right locations. I mean, we've talked about the fact that these days staff are essentially told not to interfere, not to intervene, because most retailers have a non-confrontation policy. But some retailers in the US are even working with local police forces, and now the security guards in the stores are actually serving police officers.
Really?
And that way they do have that power of arrest, that power of detention. So if they do spot somebody stealing, they can physically stop them, whereas a store security guard can't necessarily do that, not without
the retailer facing legal action afterwards. And whereas if it's a serving NYPD officer, they can
exactly
pretty much taser them on the spot, or
exactly
whatever. I mean, an actual crime has been committed, and somebody that's there that's qualified to deal with it is addressing it, and
correct, in the right way.
So basically, a bit like using police officers as bank nurses in retail. Yeah, so
I'm also seeing. I mean, we talked about those sort of cameras and the analytics within the store, but at point of sale is also very critical, and we're seeing a lot of that technology now, and we saw it at NRF. The technology being used with cameras at point of sale, again, looking at those minute behaviours. So if I take a product and move it across the scanner at the self-checkout, but I'm holding the product in such a way that the barcode is hidden, using the cameras to recognise that product has been moved across, linking that to the data of the scanner to say, was that product actually scanned?
That wasn't a banana, surely, yeah.
Correct, exactly. So is it the right product? Is it a misscan? Is something happening at that point of sale? Are the product being left in the basket, or left in, and then moved across without being scanned? So all of those small behaviours that have an impact on shrink are being addressed, and we're using AI and computer vision in order to address those.
Yeah, so inflation drives the behaviour that causes theft, which presents retailers with the challenge of shrinkage. And fortunately, there are various different technological solutions there to address that.
And the thing with tech companies, I guess a positive outcome for technology industry of that is that if shrink has increased, then obviously the cost of shrink has increased to the retailer. So the likelihood that the retailer is then going to spend money to solve that problem goes up, and they will look for technological solutions for those problems.
Easy for you to say,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I suppose another element of whether it's shrinkage or loss is a different take on that, which links back into the sustainability element that we were talking about before, which comes down to food waste and how do retailers and for that matter hospitality companies how has that been dealt with. And again, fortunately, there were quite a few technological solutions on offer at NRF to address exactly that, weren't there?
There were lots of companies looking at ways of using AI, using data around what do we know about the products, what do we know about their use by or sell by dates, whatever date codes are on these products, and also the price elasticity of these products. To say, if I mark it down by 20%, actually I'll sell it all through by the end of the day, and therefore I have zero waste. And that and selling a product through has got to be the optimal for the retailer, because they're still getting margin from it, and then they get zero waste. Because people forget that waste is a challenge, obviously for the environment anyway, but it's also a financial cost to the retailers, because in most countries the retailer has to pay for removal of that waste, and I believe there are things happening with the UK government that is going to make that even more expensive for retailers to deal with food waste. So there's definitely a motivation to reduce waste. And then the technologies, whether it's pricing, it could be a simple price markdown tool. So mobile computer, mobile printer, printing a new price label for a product, or an electronic shelf edge label, automatically changing the price of a product when it gets to a certain date, but maybe using cameras to make sure that it sees what date is on those products, and therefore doing those markdowns, but using AI to understand what it should do.
And perhaps even linking that back to handheld, the in-store shopper devices that customers have that saying alert that you often buy pre-packed sandwiches in this store at this time of day. By the way, we've got an offer on prawn mayonnaise sandwiches at the moment. Head to aisle 6 if you're interested. That sort of alert on a handheld device, and knowledge about the customer, about that real-time information about the markdown of the products, the offers that are available. Another thing that I saw was like how you can use sensor technology to help prevent food waste. So there was a really cool solution that I was looking at, where they're selling food, like loose food items, whether that be salad or like at a buffet. If you look at more of the hospitality example, where they were using sensors to detect the depth of the food in one of the serving trays, so that you could replenish that food as soon as you saw that was running out, or if it got below 50%, then you could top it up again, so you weren't unnecessarily topping things up. And sending alerts to staff, so giving that information, making the staff aware of exactly when they need to do it. That's not really helping with food waste, but
I think anything that makes the shelving, makes the staff replenishment piece more efficient, reduces the waste, because if you get your shelves stocked in the right way and customers see products are available, then they can buy them. I always say fresh products that are held back of store are a recipe for disaster, because anything that's fresh, you want it out in front of the customer. One of the other sort of areas of sensor technology that we did see quite a lot of over the last 12 months and also at the show was temperature sensing. Because if in the supply chain products are going outside of certain temperatures, then if it's too warm, products might go they might have a date code on them, but actually they might not even reach that date code because because they've gone beyond their recommended temperature. So if you can start to monitor that, and then you could be even smarter about how you mark down products, not just based on a date code, but also based upon the status, the environmental status of that product as it's gone through the supply chain. Because a lot of the food waste actually happens in the supply chain, not even when it gets to store.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think another related to that, but also looking at a different area of technology, there's a lot of people promoting digital displays and how is that how are all the various different types of information that retailers want to get across to customers? How is that how has that been used increasingly in retail?
Well, that goes back to I think when I was talking about this was the big, you refer to them as the Pillars of Dismay, this big shift in consumer behaviour, the digital natives. And one of those expectations of digital natives is almost being always informed. So they want information. There's a hunger for information, and they expect all of the information you've got about a product. So where did it come from? What farm did it come from? Was it organically farmed? What was the name of the farmer? I mean, it's right back to the source. Where have my products come from? What is the nutritional value of those products? What are the allergens maybe that are contained within those products? But then also, what are the promotions that are available? To go back to your point around the handheld scanners, as I go around and do my own scanning. And that extends to the displays in the store, whether they are the big digital displays or the electronic shelf edge labels giving me more information. Consumers want increasingly more information, more accurate information to drive decisions. And it has to be as much as you can be relevant and appropriate and almost personalized to that individual.
Yeah,
so that's a hard challenge. Almost Minority Report as Tom Cruise walks into the store and the screen greets him, and we're certainly not there yet. But
I think we're not far off. Though. The technology exists to do that. I mean, there's got to be.
It's just how creepy is it?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I saw was how a particular company that uses camera technology is overcoming the GDPR restrictions by basically taking note of who the person is without actually capturing their individual data.
Yeah.
So they can still track them through the store without knowing who they are or retaining any facial information that's allowing them to track them by basically a millisecond after they capture the information, they delete it.
Yeah.
Well, they can see them moving through the store so they can see where they're going and what sort of things they're interested in, and they can make the displays relevant to what they're seeing.
Yeah.
But, going back to sensors again, that can be combined with sensors of lift and learn type solutions where you pick up a particular mobile phone and the display in front of you is showing the features of that phone and maybe what contracts are available.
And that can be triggered by something as simple as an RFID tag. And I've seen those sort of RFID tables used by retailers like Nike. Brands like Nike, so you pick up a running shoe, and then the screen in front of you on the desk shows you all about that running shoe, and that's about using those screens, using those sensors to almost bring the product to life, but also to do what I would typically get online is as much information as I want on a product. Now I'm in a physical store. Actually, you have the opportunity to give me even more because obviously I've got my 5 senses. So don't make the experience online better than it is in a store. Actually leverage all of those senses. Give me the ability to interact, to understand more about a product using bigger displays, using RFID and linking that to all the data that you have about that product and then all the data you have about me, to make that relevant, so that if I put a running if you know who I am and I put a running shoe down, you might tie that to maybe my Strava data to say that, Mark, you typically run very slowly, so actually you need a shoe that will help you speed yourself up a bit.
Or maybe somebody shouting at you a little bit more loudly.
Need that motivation. In the background.
And that leads me on to another really interesting thing that I saw at the show with these smart carts, where you've got the a tablet on your shopping trolley. You've got a barcode scanner built in there, and even a payment device built into it. So you're scanning goods as you're putting them into the trolley, it's not new technology. We appreciate that it probably brings some challenges with it, especially when you're parking a trolley with all that technology on it in a freezing car park in the Scandinavian winter or something.
Yeah.
But I think that the clever thing that I really liked about it was the capability that would give to a retailer to allow their customers to pretty much combine that online shopping experience where you've got some really good advantages like, have you considered buying this? People who bought this yogurt also bought these nuts and seeds or these fruit to go with it.
Yeah.
So that the ability that to give customers the capability of actually being able to see, combine the online and in-store shopping experience, I thought was a really powerful thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There was quite a few smart card companies displaying on both floors at NRF. And I think the key is that piece around what the industry calls retail media. How do you connect with a shopper? And it's that digital connection in the moment of truth. So you know who the shopper is because somehow they sign into those into the smart card.
Yeah, with a loyalty card or payment details,
etc. Potentially even facial recognition in the future. But certainly, how do you connect to that shopper in that moment as they're shopping? And the screen then gives you the ability to, as you say, promote to that person, connect to the shopping experiences in real time. So it's not just a promotion based upon what I bought a week ago, 6 months ago, etc. As you say, it's based upon actually all of that history plus what I've just put in my cart now, and there are lots of different technologies involved in making them work. And we can argue the case around, do they work? Are they practical? But I think the direction is positive because it's about how to connect to shoppers. It's about how to improve that shopping journey, the transactions. Because in theory, in an ideal world, in a smart cart, you put the items straight into your bags in the cart. The camera recognizes the items that you've put in the bag, and at the end of your shopping process, you essentially just tap on screen to pay, and then you walk out. Now there are practical challenges with that, and we all know what they are. Security. How do I know that you've paid? What happens if the technology doesn't recognize a product, etc., or product's not on file? So there are various different ways of doing that, and then obviously the challenges of obviously charging those the screens, making sure the payment is secure, and then leaving those expensive screens sitting out in a car park in the north of England or in Scandinavia. So big challenges practically around them, but the benefit of being able to have a screen in front of a customer and being able to communicate with that customer, and even to the extent of giving that customer more information about if they're looking for a certain product, they can type that product into the screen, and now the screen will show them where that product is, maybe if it's in stock or not in stock, and if it's not in stock, how to order it, etc. So adding it to a different shopping basket.
Yeah, combining that with the software that can allow you to automate your shopping list based on the order things are in the store and where to go to.
And because staff are not always available, staff are doing other things. So I might not always be able to find a member of staff to answer my question about finding a product. So if the system can do that, if the retailer already has that information, why not provide it to the shopper as they're shopping?
Yeah, I mean that's a great example of how that type of service is beneficial to the retailer. You've got the upsell benefit of it. You've got we talked before about staff and labour shortages. So not only is this automated shopping saving staff because you can't find somebody to point you in the right direction, but it's also saving staff at the checkout, because if you can incorporate that payment experience, the payment solution into it as well, then you're also saving somebody from having to work at the checkout too. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we continue to see growth in, and it's a similar vein in the scan and go solutions. As you know, Zebra plays a big part in that, because that's essentially what that does. Is it allows me to scan my own items. I've got a screen in front of me telling me what I'm spending. The screen obviously gives you the ability to see the prices, to see the promotions, product descriptions, etc. And indeed, we at NRF we announced a new version of the Scan and Go guns with a larger screen, which allows for even more communication, more potential for promotions, so a better experience for shoppers. And then you're scanning your own items; they're already scanned. So then you just need to go through the payment process. We've even added the ability to effectively tap on the device itself,
right? Okay,
to finish that transaction, to make that transaction on the device. So you can imagine, whereas most of those transactions at the moment end up on a self-checkout unit of some sort, which is quite expensive and takes up space. If I could finish that transaction on the Scan and Go gun itself, then there's a lot of opportunity for saving space, reusing that space to sell things, and actually flowing the transactions a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if I look at self-checkout and self-service, those are huge areas of growth for us in terms of the hardware and partners that are offering those together with software as solutions. So that's definitely an area. I think there's always going to be people who will prefer to use the checkout. There'll be people who prefer to use self-checkout.
Yeah.
There'll be people who are quite happy using self-scanning. I've recently converted to the self-scanning, started with my mobile phone, moved on to starting to using one of your devices, and and it might also suit me on different days to do different things. So if it's a bigger shop, I'm obviously going to want to use the checkout. And we were chatting before about it was one of the Dutch retailers that had their solution.
Jumbo in the Netherlands now have what they call chat lanes.
Okay.
So and it's the ability for customers who want it to go through a staff checkout lane that is just that little bit slower, because what they've done is they've essentially trained their staff to chat more to the customer, because shopping at the end of the day is also a social experience.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the only opportunity some people get to see people and talk to people during the week. So so they've recognized that. Now, they've not turned all lanes into chat lanes, and they also use a lot of
I would find that quite inconvenient if they did that.
Exactly. You don't want to be sat behind somebody when you're in your lunch break. You've bought your sandwich and your can of fizzy drink, and you're basically just wanting to check out as fast as you can, and you don't want to be stood behind somebody who's got 40 items and has decided also to chat about every single item with the with the cashier. So I think it's the optimal is to work out for each retailer, based upon their product set, based upon their demographics of customers that are buying from them, what's the optimal mix of different technologies to use for checkout for those transactions. Is it Scan and Go? Is it Scan and Go via a mobile device? Is it Scan and Go via a store-owned scanning device? Is it self-checkout? Is it staff lanes? And to an extent, what is the mix between those? And even taking it even further, and of course, we've even seen sort of fully frictionless stores or hybrid stores. So retailers, it goes right the way back to the beginning, understanding what is the purpose of the store, what format is right for my customers in that city, in that town, in that rural area, and you as a retailer, you probably have a mix of those across your estate.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get into the question that I know we wanted to address today, but I think with some limited time, and there are two questions that I definitely wanted to ask you before we finish up. But one of them would be, is automation the future of retail? But I think we're going to have to leave that for another podcast.
That's a big one. Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, Mark, you're going to have to probably spend a little bit more time with me at some point in the near future where we go through address that question. But a couple of things just before we finish up. We've obviously talked a lot about some of the really important trends and challenges that retailers are facing today. Some of the extremely cool new technology that's coming through to allow them to address that. On a practical level, in terms of resellers in the channel that are selling on to the resellers selling to retailers,
yeah,
what sort of takeaways would you give to them from the the new technology that we saw at NRF?
Well, first of all, I hope that this podcast has helped to outline some of the big topics that the retailers are and challenges the retailers are facing, because those are subjects that resellers should be having those conversations and asking those questions to their retail customers. How are they dealing with those? How does the conversation they're currently having with their retail customers fit into some of those bigger challenges? Because of course then it becomes more relevant to the retailer, and then the knowledge of how the technologies that the resellers are talking to the retailers about, knowing how they impact things like sustainability, knowing what the power consumption is and how it compares to other options. So taking all those factors into account, knowing how a mobile device, maybe an Android mobile device, is not just a platform for getting information to a member of staff. It's actually a platform for productivity, and therefore does address some of the labour challenges, because if I can make labour more productive, then it helps on that labour shortage.
Yeah, I think so. And if I look at a typical POS reseller that I would work with on a daily basis, that ability to be able to offer something like a self-service, a self-checkout solution to their customers, it's not necessarily their core offering, but we work with ISVs, with software partnerships that we can bring in to help them extend their current POS offering into self-service to allow their customers to address labour shortages and that sort of thing.
And I think that's important. I mean, you talk about ISVs, and I think quite often hardware companies, ISVs, hardware resellers have almost acted in their own little silos with their own conversations with customers. But I think it's very important to understand how we all work together and have more conversations together to be able to actually deliver the true value to the retail customers. So POS resellers understanding the nuances of the software, then the changes in the software that is going to be put on the devices or the POS units that they are selling to the retailers. I think that's important as well, where the future lies.
Yeah, I think so. And the fact that between Blue Star and Zebra and the partner community that we've got, complementary vendors that we work with, ISVs that we work with, there's a whole community there that we can bring together, and they've got to work together because they're all going into the same customers, the same retailers, hospitality outlets, with perhaps from different angles, but ultimately that all has to be integrated. It all has to work together. So knowing who you're playing with in the same customer, I think is
very much so. And I think when you're talking to your retail customers, don't think of yourselves as a vendor to those retail customers. Think of yourself very much as a partner. And when you start thinking like that, you start thinking about almost a customer success mentality, which says, okay, I'm going to be selling you this, but this is how you get most success out of it. This is how you get value from what I'm selling to you, and these are the added value services that I can offer around that give you this value. So to truly not think of them as an afterthought, but think of them as part of actually truly adding value alongside the software companies, alongside the hardware pieces.
Yeah, I think it's an extremely valid point, and definitely agree with that. So just one last question before we finish up today. We've talked a lot about the industry in general, about finished off with resellers there. What about Zebra? What in terms of the challenges that we've spoken about, the new solutions that are coming through, what are a couple of things that Zebra has, that solutions, new products coming through that really address the things we've been speaking about today?
Well, as I said right at the beginning, we spend a lot of time researching the market to try and understand what retailers need in the future, and then we try to both in-house develop products and solutions, but also we acquire other businesses. So we have part of that is we've developed a framework called Modern Store, and what that does is it gives us the ability to talk to retailers about three key pillars. First of all, the customer experience. How do we drive a better customer experience for that retailer's customers? Secondly, inventory optimization. How do we look at all the aspects of inventory that we've talked about today, shrink, waste, inventory visibility, etc. And we have a lot of technologies that are around that. And then thirdly, the staff piece. How do we add productivity? How do we create perfect execution from the staff? How do we get more from maybe the limited amount of staff that the retailers can find right now, and even enhance them with AI, automation, etc. So we continue to focus on those three pillars. We develop software and solutions around those, and we've brought together all of our different software solutions in an overall umbrella title called Work Cloud. And our Work Cloud suite is all around optimization, task management, communications, etc. Things that do make staff more productive. And then we continue to develop our hardware offerings, like the PS30, which is the next generation of self-scanning devices, like the next generation of point-of-sale scanners that integrate cameras and computer vision to be able to see what produce, for example, is sitting on the scale, so that rather than me having to type in product lookup, fruit and vegetables, etc., actually it just tells me that is a pink lady apple, and it gives me the price for that. So simplifying the process for customers and making it, safer and more secure for retailers as well. So bringing these new technologies forward to retailers to solve some of these big problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think, call to action there for anybody that's listening today that's interested in that. Reach out to Mark, colleagues at Zebra,
absolutely,
obviously Blue Star as well. We're keen to engage in conversations and how we can help our resellers to solve the problems that for their customers that we've spoken about today. So I know there's a lot more we could have talked about today. At some point we have to stop. We could probably talk another two or 3 hours if we given the opportunity. But always a pleasure to catch up with you, Mark. Thanks very much for coming in today. And I think we'll be back again soon at some point to talk about the more things about the future of retail, automation, and that sort of thing. Hopefully in the near future.
Plenty more to talk about. Thank you, Richard.
Definitely. Thank you. So now we can just kind of carry on chatting as if it's just like the end of the week. We shuffle the paper, I might stand up and walk a little.